What's up guys and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at another story in the collection of short stories called Different Seasons. Today we're going to be reviewing The Body. Now like I said previously, each of these stories are based on a season and this one is named The Fall from Innocence. It's around 200 pages and it's set in Castle Rock in 1960. Now most people will know of The Body from the adaptation movie which was called Stand By Me. It's a classic. A lot of people would have seen it. So two movies in this collection are already like classic adaptations. So it was fun to read this one afterwards. It was hard to kind of dissociate my view of how the characters look from the movie and with the book, but you can't really do much about that. So the premise for this book is that Castle Rock is a really small town. There's not really that much exciting going on, and there's these four kids who are all friends. There's Gordy LaChance, Chris Chambers, Vern Tessio and Teddy Duchamp. And what this story is really about is that there's rumours going around between these kids and everyone in the town that there's been a dead body found down by the train tracks, and this is supposed to be the body of a missing teenager who's just disappeared over the last couple of days. And for some reason these kids, being as young as they are, I'm not sure what age they are, they're quite young, and they feel like if they discover this body they're going to become like the heroes of Castle Rock. They're going to be in the newspaper, they're going to be the ones who discovered the body and returned the corpse back to their parents to kind of make things right. So it's like a coming of age story. It's more of like a sort of story about the children's naivety, about what they think is going to happen or what kids think the consequences of doing certain things are. So the whole story is pretty much told in a first person perspective from Gordy LaChance. This is in sort of a flashback sense. It's an older version of Gordy, like recounting the memories of that special day, that day where they went on this big adventure. And what's interesting about this is that because it's told from his perspective as an older person, we get the main semblance of the story, but we also get his sort of reflections on it as an older person about his thoughts on what really might have been going on with the kids' heads, or certain aspects that he didn't quite understand at the time. So it's really interesting to hear this story as it is, but then hearing what might have actually really been going on from Gordy's older person perspective. So the kids see this as sort of a rite of passage. They have to go on this adventure, they have to get it done. There's no going back. And in the scope of things, it's not that huge of an adventure. It's the kids going out of town, maybe 20-30 miles maximum, which by no means is a short thing for children to be doing. But in the scope of things, it's quite a small adventure, but in the kids' eyes, it's just this huge epic adventure, and all the things that happen in it are like the things you remember. Like it's one of those things, even like for me, like when you're a kid, you went on these adventures and you'll always have days where you remember like so many different random things happening, and it's like that one sort of memory of a crazy day. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I really connected with this book and why I really enjoyed it, because I feel like I have so many sort of stories and memories of my childhood, of just these crazy days out where random things happen that you could only like imagine. Like you couldn't really expect things to happen in this way, and it seems like this story has captured those type of days. So I really connected with this story. So one thing about the story is that it's like, it has very memorable set piece moments in it. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I mean, but like there's the train scene, and then there's the scene with the leeches and the junkyard, and they all have like a natural flow to them where they're all such like big moments, but they all flow naturally into this one day, which makes it all that more sort of exciting for an adventure, like Lord of the Rings style, all the different things they go through to get to the end of the journey. There are a few cheeky references to other Stephen King stories in this one. They're very subtle, obviously with it being set in Castle Rock, but with this being in 60s and the perspective being of an older Gordy, he mentions how when they're in the junkyard there's this dog called Chopper, who was supposed to be the meanest dog in Castle Rock until Cujo came around, because obviously years later Cujo happened and that was a big, very scary event. There are certain sections in this book which I found the hardest to read or to stay concentrated with possible in a Stephen King book, and these are certain instances where Gordy is writing his own books and we get to read his own stories, and we get this a few times through the book. Some of them from like when he was a teenager to growing up, and then when he's kind of more mature in his writing style. And in the beginning with his first story, it's so poorly written purposely, you're just sitting there like, oh, just let this chapter end. And it's incredible how as soon as the story ends it goes back to not being a piece of fiction. You can tell how good of a writer Stephen King is, or just how poor of a writer Gordy LaChance is, but it's almost torturous. But the second it flips back, you can just tell like, wow, this is I'm completely engaged again straight away. So they are like really hard to read and like not compelling, but the purpose of them is just so well done. This story is all about the characters and how they sort of relate to each other, and the different sort of chemistry they have between the characters. And the most interesting one in this story is the main character Gordy and Chris Chambers. Chris Chambers was played by River Phoenix in the movie, and he was a great character, great acting as well. And he's just a very complex character. He's sort of the one from a rougher family background, and he's almost expected to be this demon seed, this bad kid. But what you really get to like know in the story is just how much of like a good heart he has, and he just feels like he's destined to be end up like the rest of his family or the rest of the bad people. And it's really like sort of sad to see he has this perspective, because he's clearly talented, he's clearly intelligent, but he just feels like he's not going to be able to get anywhere in life just because of who he is. Him being a kid and his naivety, like anyone can sort of conquer that, but it's hard to read this kid like being this way at such a young age. We do have some antagonists in the story as well, which are weirdly mostly all related to the boys, like older brothers. So we have like Vern's older brother and Gordy's brother is actually deceased before the story begins, so that is another sort of complex addition to the story, where we see sort of how he deals with the death of his brother, and even comes into some of his stories, which gives us like another inner look in how Gordy dealt with the death of his brother. Ace Merrill is one of the main villains in this story. Now, he was in Castle Rock season 2 of the TV series, and he was played by Kiefer Sutherland in Stand By Me. He's just a bully, like most of his stories bully. He's this bad egg, but he has this like composure to him where like you wouldn't fuck with him, or if you did, you know, like you're gonna pay the consequences for it. So he was a really intimidating guy, and you could tell that even his friends were sort of like intimidated by him as well. So overall, yeah, this is a classic story, a classic movie, and yeah, I love the body, I love the nostalgia of it, how it made me feel about my sort of childhood and growing up, and I recommend anyone to read this story. It's very similar to the sort of Losers Club. This is like a prior Loser Club before he wrote it, so this is his first stab at a group of kids. So there's quite a lot of humour in there between the groups, so there's a lot of humour, there's a lot of heart, and a lot of nostalgia. So that's what I've got to say about the story. Absolutely love the body. So the next one I'm going to be reviewing in this season is the last book in Different Seasons, which is called The Breathing Method. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your comments down below, what you think of this book, what you think of this story, the movie, anything, and I will be back soon with the Breathing Method review.